Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's me, Rabbi Brian, says so on my screen. And I'm here with a bunch of friends. This is Saturday, August the 6th. And if you don't like the Zoom screen, close your eyes for a moment. Here's people gathering in for the service. Oh, no. There we are. Everyone, do a wave. Say hi to people. Say hi to the people above you, the people below you.
Morning.
And say good morning to the people who are on Facebook and on YouTube. Good morning, all of those people.
Good morning.
So,
Morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning.
good morning.
Buenos dias.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let me get back to my regular view. There we are. We are back on regular view. Good morning to everyone. Glad you guys are all here. This is a gathering of people who are seeking some kind of transcendent something, but maybe in a little bit of a different way of doing so. I did just see a study, and it was followed up on NPR, that Zoom, they found, works really well if people interact.
Yeah.
And they said,
You think?
they said just simple things like doing a thumbs up if you agree with someone while they're speaking, and doing this. They taught this sign of putting your hands over your heart to show empathy and care. That if you actually interact live with the people in your Zoom group, you can have a pleasurable experience. It's like, of course, you interact. That's what we do. So thank you guys for all being here, for interacting. You are all
Muting
adults.
helps too.
Yes. That was not part of the study, but thank you, Emily. You are all adults, and I wrote down notes. My golly gee. I have no idea what that means anymore. Well, I'm going to go to the second bullet point because that first one means absolutely nothing. The second bullet point says you are all adults, and being that you're all adults. Oh, that's what the first one is. I used to say this, that I'm glad that this is a group of adults, because that means that we can feel free in our language, that if we want to say some heretical thoughts about the divine, that we can just say that. And if you find a curse word slipping out of your mouth, that's fine. And that's one of the advantages of being a group of adults, of not having to cater to children and treating everyone like adults. That being said, it was pointed out to me that last week I apologized more than I needed to a group of adults. And people pointed out to me afterwards, said, we're adults. We can handle it when you mess up. And I thought, okay, well, that's fantastic. And it brought me to this thought. Please hold. If I can get it here. Well, that thought will be coming. No, it's not. All right, this is going really well so far. So,
You think so?
but that was what the note is that I can't seem to pull up on the screen, which is, I have this feeling, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. There it is. Come on, Brian. I have this feeling, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that you're only as good as... Here it is. Come on, screen. That you're only as good as your last at bat. You know that feeling? Where you're only as good as your last at bat. You're only as good as the last time that you performed. And I came to that quote. Here it is. I'll put that on my screen here. While the exact amount more is not quantified, you are more than your last performance. While the exact amount is not quantified, you are more than your last performance.
Get something from Yogi Berra.
Help me out understand that one.
Well, if you want something that deals with the last bat, then Yogi was your guy.
Okay, for
Lots of great quotes.
we're on a baseball analogy, and we take a moment to think of Vince Scully, who a lot of people are mourning
Yes.
the death of. So that that all being said, I need to remember, and I'm sure it's for all of you as well. I keep thinking I need to produce, and I need to keep things at this certain level of production, or I'm not going to be valued.
Wrong. Right. I mean, you are
Valued by who?
You know the feeling.
Yeah.
No, it's not true.
So let's go with that. First,
you're the product. You're the product.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
And then after that, it's how you are at the time that you are.
Right. And
good, bad, or indifferent.
In the firmware that's installed up here says that you need to continue to produce and don't slack off and do better than the last thing you did always. And I have a feeling that I'm not the only one who has that feeling. I see a few people are waving. I see some heads nodding. Yeah, while the exact amount more is not quantified, you are more than your last performance. So that being said, I don't need to do this service better than I did last week's service. We're just going to take this week as it is. Last week, some really interesting things happened. But before I go to that, let me just take a moment and look at all your faces and say good morning and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Jocelyn, your hand is raised. Is that an intentional? No.
I was actually going to comment on your last comment, but and honestly, we can move on. It's all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyhow, here we are.
So here we are. I wanted to talk about something that happened at the end of last week. And if you weren't here last week, I hope to fill you in a little bit so that you understand what happened. It was weeks and weeks ago, there was a note in the chat, Rabbi, I'm saying Kaddish, and I'll explain what that is. I'm saying Kaddish for my parents. Would you please end our service with the words of Kaddish? And that came in maybe a month ago. And somebody pointed out, I don't read the chat while I'm hosting here. I can't do that many things at a time. And it was pointed out that somebody had asked me to say the words of Kaddish. And the words of Kaddish are words that are associated with the deceased, with the dead. And it's something that it's a very rhythmic Aramaic phrasing, and it's not really, it doesn't even mention the dead, the words, but it's associated with the dead. And somebody asked me to do it, and I took a moment a month ago or whenever it was, and I thought, you know what, it's not my practice to do, but if someone's asking me to do it, what kind of rabbi am I if I'm not going to honor that request?
Mm-hmm.
And then last week, the individual who had asked a month or so ago put again in the chat, I'm trying to say Kaddish for my parents. Would you please end the service? And I didn't see it. And we got to the end of the service last week, and somebody pointed out that there was the comment in the chat. And then the comment was made, Rabbi, you said that you would always honor that request, which put me in a very odd place. As I felt then I had to do this. And so I did. I led those words again, and I was pissed off.
Really?
And let me explain why. I was pissed off because, and you don't know this, why would you know this? But I had made a goal of running a service that doesn't use language that the people who come to the service don't understand. I wanted to do religion outside the box. I wanted to do a service where we weren't doing, there are two different, so here's a thought, is that there's hard focus is what we're doing right now. We're thinking, we're engaged with what's being said. And then there's a soft focus, which you can do while you're watching a stream or when you're watching a bunch of monks chant in a language you don't understand. You get a soft focus because you don't understand exactly what's going on. And I wanted a service where the soft focus was not brought to us by doing things in a foreign language. I don't want to do things in Hebrew. And I even put up in the chat in the clubhouse, how many of you feel okay with me doing things in Hebrew? And there was a majority of people said, we're glad with it. We're fine with it. Please do things in Hebrew. That's, but I don't want to.
I had an opposing view.
Yeah, I did not want to, and I hadn't expressed why. And the reason I didn't want to was I don't like the words when you translate them. I don't like what they mean. And if I am to say these words, and you start, watch how this happens, it's odd, is you start and you get a positive association along with these words because it's comforting, it's that soft focus. You get to hear somebody, Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bi'amah Devarach. You get to hear this rhythmical, and I didn't, and then you go back later, and I never thought about this before. But if you're a little kid and you're saying all these words in a foreign language and you have positive associations with them, and then somebody comes along and shows you what the words actually mean, you have dissonance. Because these are words that have given you comfort. These are words that felt really good to you. And now you find out that you're saying words that say, thank you, God, for bringing the dead back to life. I didn't want to say those words. I don't believe those words. So I got myself stuck. That's a long, long introduction for where I wanted to take us, which is when I was asked to say that prayer by this gentleman who doesn't come to the service often, and I emailed with them. They're not here today, and that's not because of what happened, but they came and they asked me to do this thing, and I was pissed. And I spoke with a number of people, and I told them how I was mad. And they said, well, how dare he make you do something at your service with which you were uncomfortable? And we're going to go a little deeper on that in a second, but it brought me to these two stick figures. Oh, look, I made new ones.
Getting to be a pro.
This guy and this guy. This one is D. D stands for discernment. It's what you notice. You notice that it's blue. You might notice that around the D it's white inside. D is just discernment, what you notice. J is judgment, what you think about what you noticed. And they always happen in this order. It's always discernment, you notice something, and then you have a thought about it. And here's the quote that I want us to begin with today. It's from Viktor Frankl. He said, between stimulus and response, perfect example there with the bells.
Way to go, Jack.
Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Let me say that again. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. Between what we notice and how we react to it, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Mark asked me to do a thing. I had a response, and my guys were like this, holding hands. And I was pissed. And then I realized he asked me to do this prayer in Aramaic. I got pissed off. And I realized that I could do this and separate their hands out and realize, You know, well, first let me just be completely open and tell you how petty I can be. And I thought, well, fuck him. He can go to 500 online services that do the services in Hebrew. And why's he got to come and disturb my service? Moreover, he's not been one of the people who comes regularly. How dare he tell me what to do? This is all judgment. This is all judgment. This is all judgment. So it's all happening in my head. And then I had compassion. And the compassion was, this is somebody who wants to do, he's been to the service before. He wants to share with this community. For some reason, he finds this community to be a community he wants to associate with. And he even showed his face on the screen last week. And so then my judgment, my discernment is the same. And my judgment, I allowed in some space for compassion. Not just the judgment of what a schmuck, but the judgment of having an open heart of that this person too, that they belong. I'm going to stop there and then we're going to go one step further. But I want us to talk for a moment about these two ideas, about discernment and judgment. What are you noticing right now? And what are you thinking about what you're noticing right now? What do you notice right now? And what are you thinking about what you notice right now?
Wondering how you sleep at night.
They are mirror images.
You notice that they're mirror images. You're noticing the way that they're cut out. That's a discernment. Is there a judgment? And you might have a different one. I'm sure you have a different one than Rob does.
Well, one's blue, one's white.
You're noticing. Keep going, and let's go not just about the stick figures, but let's talk about what's going on in your life, what's going on in the service, what's going on. Let's zoom out a little bit.
So, Rabbi, what I noticed was I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When you were talking about your discomfort and your being pissed off, I thought, boy, I don't want the rabbi to be uncomfortable.
Right.
But then it changed, and I was really appreciative that you were willing to talk through that sort of ugly experience that you had, that normally we don't talk about some of the thoughts
Right.
run through our minds, and I thought that was pretty damn generous of you. So
Thank you.
I was under the impression that the person who asked for Kaddish was doing it because he had heard about my husband's death. I didn't know it was about his parents. I thought that was very sensitive, but I felt absolutely no need for anyone to say Kaddish for my husband. That's not my practice. So I was very comfortable if you had not done it, but I was thinking that he was doing something sensitive.
I appreciate that, Carol. And I had thought of it this way, Carol. Had you asked me, my judgment, had you asked me, would I say Kaddish for Michael? Of course. I would have no negative judgment about that at all. Because
I think the people here don't understand that Kaddish is said every day for 11 months if you lost someone close in your family.
Yeah.
And so this would go on for the 11 months, and that's not the shape of this service.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity, Carol, and thank you for your perspective. And isn't that always such a thing of how two people can see the exact same thing and have heard it differently? Let's go to Jocelyn, then Michael, then Steve.
So, as a child of a narcissist who has been through a lot of therapy, I have learned that my judgment is off, is skewed, and it will be the rest of my life.
Amen.
And so I actually depend on other people's discernment. When I start seeing myself flipping out, I turn around to someone else who maybe have witnessed, and what did you see?
Yeah. Isn't that, and Jocelyn, thank you for being vulnerable and opening up and telling us about yourself. And this is for everybody, that what we're not to believe everything we think. I forgot who said that quote, but don't
Word,
believe
yeah.
everything we think. We think we saw this happen this way. Annie was so upset that somebody spilled some of her new face toner. She had dropped the bag intentionally. Like, she dropped the bag. She thought it only had clothes in it. She dropped the bag. It spilled out. She thought one of us maliciously spilled out her face toner. It wasn't. Don't believe everything you think. Michael, and then Steve, and then Al.
I find my discernment takes time to show up sometimes. It's not always there when I want it. So I have a situation that I'm working on now, and it's a month later, and I'm starting to see some discernment poke its head around. But
yeah, isn't that funny? Is that often we think about discernment is what are we immediately noticing? I feel that feeling in my heart. I smell a smell. It's that discernment is instant. And Michael, you're absolutely right. Discernment sometimes can take a year. It can take a long time. Thank you. Al, go ahead. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I noticed that you said, what kind of rabbi would I be if I didn't say the prayer?
Yeah.
I just think that says a lot about you. You know, that you take your role as a rabbi seriously,
Yeah.
and yet you're fighting with your role as a rabbi. This made you angry to have to say this. You know, so you're redefining your role as a rabbi. I think that has a lot to do with what you were feeling and what was going on with this like rapid judgment and then the longer judgment that you had.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like thank you, Al. I'm not going to repeat what you just said. You just said it. Stephen.
You're welcome.
I just took it in as, to a certain extent, this is what we do on Saturdays, and this was an example of a lesson you've been trying to get us to understand, and how much more clearly can we see it when we see it through the eyes of you actually fighting a real dilemma.
Yeah, and I was
very eyes, and it was a beautiful.
Thank
a beautiful
you.
Sharing and a beautiful object lesson.
Thank you, Stephen. That was and I will thank Kip and others who helped me to formulate how to take the thing that really pissed me off and turn it into a teaching moment. So
learning moment.
And I grabbed my prayer book and I didn't see anything about the resurrection of the dead in the cottage.
No, that's not in Kaddish, but that's in the Amida.
Yeah.
Not in your prayer book and my prayer book, but Jews throughout the world have.
Oh yeah, I understand that, but it wasn't in that particular prayer.
It's not in the Kaddish.
No, okay. So if
Good.
I just wanted to make sure.
How did I miss that?
Okay, it's.
I thought it was a fantastic. This is exactly, and here am I showing you exactly how it plays out in me, in real time.
I'd like us to go one step deeper. Y'all ready for that? Before we do that, my teacher training comes back in, but I got to make sure that we understand this one. There are the things that we notice, and then there are thoughts we have about them. They are not one and the same, and the more we can separate them out, the more peace we can find. And I'm going to coin a word, and the word I'm going to make up is the word pre-action. It's like the word reaction. You react to something. But it's a pre-action. It's something that you didn't... Oh, there it is. That it's a pre-action. It's something that you didn't even intend to do, but it's just the way you're wired. And you pre-act. You act in a way that you are almost programmed to do. That it's not our thinking. Go ahead, Alex.
The other thing that comes to mind from this discussion about the cottage is this also sort of ties in with your lesson about how if you like somebody, they can pull a plate of spaghetti on your lap versus if you don't like them, the tiniest thing will annoy you because, I can't help but notice that if Carol had asked for Kaddish, no problem. But for someone who isn't a regular here to ask for Kaddish, it pissed you off.
Right,
And
and that's
I
exactly.
find that interesting.
I want that. That's going to springboard me exactly where I want to go next. But I'm going to stop at Betsy's house before we get there. Betsy.
Okay, I was just gonna say your reaction sounds to me like knee jerk.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is that we have knee jerk reactions, and what would it be like? What would it be like for us to separate these people from being hand in hand? That our judgment doesn't necessarily follow the discernment, that we can have a little bit of space between them. And let me get to where Alex was, and I'm going to take the story a little bit further. So this is before I come to the wiser discernment that I'm going to be teaching this lesson. So let's put ourselves back somewhere around Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. And I get an email from this Cantor. It was from Cantor Mark. And he writes, my parents died in 1993. I've just decided that I want to start doing the traditional 11 months of Kaddish that I missed out on having done. I angrily push all the buttons on my phone to call Kip and say, Kip, I gotta tell you, this motherfucker, it's not even like he needs to say the goddamn fucking Kaddish. He's just made this shit up, right? Stay with me. Stay with me. And as I'm dialing Kip, I realize, stop. You're making it worse. And Kip picks up the phone and I said, brother, do you have a minute? He says, certainly I do. I said, I just almost got myself into a loop of taking this person, using what Alex just said. If it had been Carol who asked, I would have been fine. But I have this person and I'm going to bond with you, Kip, over what a fucking asshole he is, instead of going to compassion. I'm going to throw him onto the fuel fire and light him ablaze. No compassion to him. What an asshole he is for putting me in that situation. You hear where I'm saying here? I'm going to try it in a few different words. He's new. And Alex, it's that quote. If you like someone the way they hold their spoon, I'm sorry, let me say the quote again. If you dislike someone, the way they hold their spoon will offend you. But if you like them, they could drop a plate of food in your lap and you wouldn't mind. I had decided that I didn't like this person. And so I was willing to throw them away and to bond more with my buddy Kip over there's a great quote. Kip, I think you're the one who brought it into the conversation, which is, in order to have a meeting, all you need is a coffee pot and a resentment.
Excellent.
I was going to collude with Kip. I was bringing it to Kip to collude that we can bond over this person not being a part of the club and being offensive. Pure judgment. Until I realized, or until the discernment came of what I was doing. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has done this. We're going to open it up for other comments in a moment. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, without judgment, I'm just wondering whether this would be an opportunity to practice love of those we don't like.
It is always a good time to love those we don't like. It is not comfortable. We like being right, and it's easier to say that we are right when we have them to be wrong. Melanie Klein, Freud, Jung, Melanie Klein, really rough family tree there in psychotherapy. Melanie Klein said that othering, there's this act of othering where we make us an us by making them a them.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes more our go-to in times of stress. In times of stress, we tend to other more. It's not her exact quote, but it's around her ideas. That we need to stop othering and making them a them so that we're an us. And this is a problem, folks. This is a problem with a lot of religious groups, is that as soon as we make us an us, we make us an us by making them a them, and we don't learn about them so that we can other them and we can have us be an us. I spend a lot of time thinking about this. We're going to go to Joe first and then Jack.
I will just own, while you're owning, that I was part of the Let's Bond with Kip Club. And
Lucky Kip.
And I had a reason for it. And the reason for it was that I have an expectation that this group of people stay non-denominational, period. So part of me was like, well, I don't think I should interrupt the Saturday service every week if I want a Catholic person. And so then I had to do the space between my observation and my discernment and my own judgment and go, hey, Joe, wait a minute. What if this guy, for whatever reason, what if like he super needs to do this Kaddish thing and we're the group he chose for whatever reason? If we're kind to him and nice to him, who knows? Who knows why he showed up? Right. And maybe it's an opportunity for me to have a new friend. I could make him my friend.
And I think in our group, as we are a group, and a lot of you know each other's faces and are familiar with each other, is to notice what happens when somebody who's not part of the group comes, and do you have that, oh, foreigner, bad. Like, is that the instinctual idea? Al and then Jack.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something that I'm taking away from your story, which is that I've known Viktor Frankl's quote for a long time, and I love that quote. But it made me realize that not only is there space to make a choice, but there's always more space to make more choices.
Oh, wow.
Like, you may have to make an amends because you made a choice that you weren't happy with and explain it to a bunch of people like you just did to us about saying the prayer. But there's always more space to have a different reaction.
Yeah.
And that's just incredible freedom. So I really appreciate your story. It takes what Viktor Frankl wrote and raises it to a higher power in a way.
I like to think of myself as Viktor Frankl with hand puppets.
Yes. And the hand puppets add a lot.
has her hand up too, by the way.
Okay, let's go with Jack, and then go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, if there's anything I've learned from this lifelong experience, is that I always felt I lived in the world of half truths and half lies.
Yeah.
Every moment of my existence. And my discernment is to try not to react, from something that's happening.
Correct.
And then to realize that, that's their truth, it's not mine, and vice versa.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Very difficult. Very difficult.
Because we like to believe that the thoughts that we have are true.
Yeah, right. I mean, my partner loves the Eternal Word Network. And when those guys start talking, I just realize he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
And I just get upset inside, and I just get up and leave. It's not worth it.
Thank you, Jack. Somebody, I forgot whose other hand was up.
Afia.
Go for it.
Hi, y'all.
Oh, hi, Afia. You're not on video.
Not on camera. I'm not on video, no, but I can see you all. I appreciate this conversation, and one of the things that I think we talked about too, Rabbi, I was also one of the folks who had questions. But one of the places I was coming from was like the sense of community care. And so it's a little bit of a tangent from your judgment discernment thing, but feels important because my question is always, as a, I grew up an Army brat, so I'm often the new person in a space. And I know that that's not always the thing that other people in the space have thought about, is how do you get new people in the loop? What's the way that information is translated? How do you teach a culture to people? And so the Saturday service, the word community has been used for some time now. And that means that there's a way that the community communicates about itself to people who are new. Mm-hmm. And so there's also a different level of conversation and responsibility to be considered aside from the discernment and judgment part, which is how do we teach people what we do, and how do we teach them in a way that lets them know that they can come back if they don't do things the way that we do them, right? Yeah. So like in this case, Mark had no idea that this was an undenominational service. So like there's a lot of like this is part of the outsider insider conversation, but there is a real conversation for us to have about how do we orient people to this space in a compassionate way, because we could be passing up on a blessing by not taking the care to inform folks on what this community is about and how we get down. And so I'm hearing that come up in some of this as well. And I don't know that we've had that conversation before.
And I'll give you all the last email I got from Mark. I explained to him, I typed out the whole thing. I said, this is my practice is not to do. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I will be showing back up, but I look forward to coming in the future. And we made friends at the end of it. I want to also tell everybody next week, and this is, how we show up in spaces and what things look like. Next week and the week after, Afia is running this service in my stead. I have the opportunity to be away with my family, and I asked Afia if she would caretake the community and lead us in the way that, not to lead the way I do, but to do something a little bit differently. So next week, please come back and play nice. I always used to say in my classrooms, in my high school classrooms, I would always say to the students, I say, how you treat the substitute reflects on how much you like me. Okay, let's take a moment. First of all, did anyone look up and find out something new about the land on which they are seated? We do some kind of land acknowledgement, and I like to do it that because we are all in different locations, is to hear from different people who are in different places. And Harold and Connie, I see you changed your screen name to reflect that. Would you give us a little bit so we know where you are? You're still on mute though, Harold.
We're in the South Central Plains, which is Texas, and there was any number of tribes. The most prominent ones were Kickapoo, Wichita, and Tuanani. So they in and out and around, moved pretty dramatically since this is plains territory. So they had to move with wherever the animals went. So there's a lot of tribes have set foot on this property.
Right. Thank you. And if someone else want to make an acknowledgement of the land where they currently are, and we'll do other ones in following weeks. Somebody else have a story about the land where they are?
Well, I'm in Wisconsin.
Still the Guamish, the people of the river.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Emily. We'll take a moment and, oh my goodness, here's my solution to the Kaddish problem. Because there's a rule in Judaism that you're only allowed to say this special prayer when there's a quorum of at least 10 people. And so I spoke with a rabbi friend. I'm like, what do I do if somebody wants to say Kaddish and I don't want to do it? And she said, well, you do a minute of silence. Anyone who wants to say Kaddish can say Kaddish during that minute of silence for anyone who they want. And Like, and that's Rabbi Debbie Till in Rochester, New York. She saved my ass on coming up with that clever solution. So, as is our tradition, we're going to take a minute for prayers, and we have a list of people. Joe, would you share with us?
I would be happy to. The list this week is Rita W., Rita S., Amy, Carol Ox, Kip, Joe, Linda D., April, Peggy B., Chris B., Vashti Ross, Abbas David D., Patty J., Greta Robert, the upcoming election in Sweden, Patty J. RJ, New Baby Ryan, Marcus, Marilyn G., and Brittany G.
And we'll add to those anyone else's names or anyone whose heart needs a little extra prayers. And let's take a minute of silence starting right now, and we'll go in on my clock above my head until 8:41, until 8:42. And we're back. Thank you guys very much. One other point that I noticed when I was telling people about, right, I'm trying to sort out how do I do this Kaddish thing and what do I do and da-da-da-da. And I spoke with people. I'm an oral processor. It helps me to speak to people to figure things out. And I got solutions. Well, you should maybe we should try doing it always at 45 minutes after the hour. We'll do this, or maybe we should make a list of rules and we should put those in the chat. And I noticed in people trying to come up with solutions, with me trying to come up with solutions, there was this compelling pull towards structure. There was a very compelling pull to take this service, which is delightfully not as minimally structured as I could possibly make. But there was a pull towards, if there were only more structure, we would have boundaries and we would feel more safe. And I just want to put that out for you to noodle upon, about how structure gives us the illusion of control and therefore safety. But it also gives us something to do. Like, let's build fucking walls. Okay, yeah, all right, we have a project now. And it gives us a structure, but that the structure might go against the goal.
Right.
It might be comforting, but it might also be antithetical, fancy word, to what we're trying to achieve. Okay.
I think structure leads to exclusion.
Structure can lead to exclusion. There's a great sign I saw in a church once. It said, I would rather be excluded for who I include than be included for who I exclude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would rather be excluded for who I include than to be included for who I exclude. That's what we're going for here. And let's take a moment to smell the roses and to appreciate that if right now in this moment we have a lot of people who have like minds who are all trying to do the same thing. we're going to break into small groups, hopefully. Alex, I'm going to host over to you so that you can set up the rooms to do so. Alex, I can't find you. There you are. So the service would be a lot easier if there were only like 2 people in it. I'd be able to... So this is my unfortunate time of telling you all, most of you have to go. We're going to go into small groups, and I'd love in the small groups for you to have an opportunity to talk about, well, the prompt is going to be to talk about a time in which you noticed something and you judged it to be something, but it weren't necessarily the case.
And how many roughly do we want to?
We're going to do rooms of 5, and we're going to do 6 minutes. And if you're on audio only, you're going to get sent into a room automatically. You don't have to participate. This is open again. And what other announcements am I supposed to make before I send you off into rooms? Yeah, please be mindful of each other's time. And it gives you about 45 seconds, a minute per person to talk about discernment and judgment and how these two feel absolutely interlinked in so many of our lives. Alex, we're ready to make that a thing?
Yep, rooms are ready to go, and they're now open.
Oh, good.
Alex, it's asking me to join a room. If I do so, I think I'm still broadcasting what I do over into that room. Can I leave?
Most likely, yes.
Okay, I'm going to go join room 2 because the room I'm assigned to, it only has 2 people in it otherwise.
Okay.
I'm going to leave you here. That is not being broadcast, just so that you know.
Okay.
I don't think it's being broadcast. Be careful. I don't know.
Well, I won't cuss then. How's that?
I cuss all the fucking time.
Yeah, I used to live in Phoenix. We're up to 125.
Yeah. Well, we're not used to it here.
Connie, Harold, Jack, just to warn you, because you have my illustrious presence in this room, it is being broadcast to Facebook and YouTube. There are a total in the entire globe, there are probably 30 people who won't watch this.
Good.
There are probably more than 30 people who won't watch this as well. But I'm curious if you guys have had this discernment, judgment experience, and how it goes for you.
Well, probably about the same as it did for you.
Say a little bit more, Connie.
Well, we have a daughter that I cannot communicate with. And my discernment is that she dislikes me intensely. And I, no matter what I do, she can't feel anything for me. And so I feel very judgmental in that I want nothing to do with her.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's a big thing to share.
Well, it's a hard thing to live with.
I truly hate to imagine.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
We've had our share of kid problems. So anyway, but
so yeah, that's
it's hard to change what has gone on for 60 years. So I don't know.
Wow.
Very difficult.
Yes, it is.
Well, your question brings back so many memories. One probably a prime one is in 1955. Actually, on February 1st, I was in a what the church calls a novitiate, which is a time that you decide whether you're going to stay or leave. And
is
one morning,
is this towards ordination? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what I was a Capuchin Franciscan monk.
Okay.
Okay, and so that that afternoon, I walked out on the property, sat on the edge of the property on the 3 foot wall, watching all the traffic going by. And I had this incredible feeling that I no longer belonged there where I was. So I made that, I just looked at both ends of the stick and I said, I discerned that, no, it's not going to happen for me. And I made that judgment. Went back in, talked with the priest that was in charge of all of us, and said, I'm leaving. And I left on the 8 o'clock train out of Boston.
That was it.
The next morning, it was it.
That was it. Wow. What a story. Interesting. Thank you, Jack. Thank
Sure.
you for sharing that.
It's interesting. We've lived a lot of places, and Bible Belt is an interesting place. And Texas is even more interesting because you run into people all over the place that have never left the state. And you start having a conversation with some of these people, and they have no clue what goes on in the real world because they've never crossed the state boundaries. And they start rendering judgments.
Yeah.
This and that, and this and that, and this and that. And it's all you can do to bite your tongue and not say you're dumber than a post.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation, I don't remember, a little while back with somebody, and they were start railing against Islam and Muslims. And my comment back is, you ever had a conversation with an imam? You know what you're talking about. Well, I don't even know if they knew what an imam was, but anyhow, it's not the point. Point is, they were running their mouth about something they absolutely knew nothing about.
Yeah.
You talk about biting your tongue, and this place is notorious for fundamental Christianity and oneness. We're the one. Don't cross the boundaries of Texas. And the only reason I'm in Texas is because I chased my paycheck down here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Jack. I'm going to push us back into the main session. Always good to learn about people. Thank you.
I'll be like, what's wrong with you? Snow.
I loved coming home from the natatorium in the middle of winter, and my hair was icicles, and I would sit there and I'd just crunch them, and it was so cool and fun.
I know, my mom, it would drive mom crazy. Don't do that, you're gonna break your hair. Yeah. It's fun, it's satisfying. Leave me alone.
Oh, I gotta bail, guys. I will see you later.
Bye, Jocelyn.
Bye.
Yeah.
Here comes everyone zooming back in. Thank you all for coming back in. I'd love to hear, is there something that was brought up in your group that was particularly moved your heart, or something that there was a moral that you can say, here's something that I learned that I'm going to take with me that I think other people might want to learn from too?
Well, we all discussed when we're driving, we're at our worst.
When you're driving, you're at your worst for how? Explain.
Well, we make snap judgments about the other drivers, and making that space to make room for, well, my example was I thought some guy was an idiot because he had blocked the whole road I needed to turn on with his car, and I had to squirm around him, and an hour later he was still there. And so I rolled my window down and asked if he needed help. Can you move your car? And he says, I can't move my car. The steering column is broken. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're not an idiot, and I'm kind of a jerk for assuming you were.
Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. Yeah, isn't it amazing how many judgments we make just based on the color of somebody's car and the size of the wheels and
BMW.
We've decided something about their girth based on how high up the truck bed is. I was subtle there. That was subtle. That was
It's not your girth.
Anything, and let's hear from someone else. Something else that you got from your group, from sharing your group.
Mhm.
Okay.
For us,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
For us, it was putting a space, however that is for you, in between your observation and your judgment. And particularly for me, it's learning to count to 10 or do whatever it is I need. Because once words are said, they can't be taken back.
Correct.
You can say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, but for me, my normal response is, then why in the hell did you say it in the first place then? You said what you meant.
Yeah. It's having the space and even before adding the space is realizing that's a judgment. That's not what we necessarily saw. That's not what we necessarily heard but we're making up that story. That's a hard thing to do. Thank you, Ray. I have a few announcements to make. If anyone else have what we want to share on that last thought. Okay, a few announcements. One, this is if you want, hey, after this service, in a few minutes, we're going to go into there's a donut hour, there's a deep dive time, there's a poetry room. Those are not set in stone. If you would like to have at this next hour group to say prayers in Swahili, I don't offer it up. Ask Alex to create a room, make a room. Let's make something happen. And the same is true on the Clubhouse. If there's something in the Clubhouse you want to see happening, let's make that happen. That being said, I'm talking with Christina about adding in the God Shekhinah group, and we're trying to organize something in the Clubhouse so that there can be more overlap between the two. Other announcements. Here's an announcement that I made last time. Oh, also in the Clubhouse, hey, do you want to be in a Hebrew club? I know you do. Go in. There's
what's a Hebrew club?
It's a club of people who are thinking, hey, Hebrew looks like that's kind of fun. Let's talk about it. So in the Clubhouse, if you go in special rooms, there's a room called Jew Friends of Mine, because I thought that was a funny title. And in there's a little Hebrew. Let's talk about Hebrew. I've learned the alphabet, or I want to learn the alphabet, or anything you want to be involved in. Please to go there. And the last on the announcement is this. Hey, should you find yourself depressed, that happens. That's okay. It's okay to not be okay. I think that's a really important announcement to make.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. I do want to say one thing directly to Kip. Hi, Kip. Hey, buddy, remember you told me to slow it down?
You did great. You did so good. I am so proud of you. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate, and I wanted to thank Kip, but to thank all of you for feedback that I get. That's how this works. And to be open to feedback from others is such an important skill in such a way that we all learn. I'm going to end our service there. Thank you all for coming. I have already hostified you. I'm going to turn off. Hey, people on Facebook and YouTube, we're not sure if you're going to be able to join us next week or not due to technology. You'll find out next week.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah. Kip, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to let people know we're going to have a little bit more formalized discussion and deep dive. We're going to try this a few times. We're going to start out with a topic. We've talked about doing this for a few weeks. We're going to start with a topic this week that I messed up the first time I typed it in the chat. But the topic we're going to start with is uncertainty is the doorway to a love-filled life. So if anyone would like to come and join that discussion, you're more than welcome.
If you uncertainty is a path to a love-filled life. I'm not certain about
Are you
that.
certain about that?
That's the joke
No.
I was making, Rob.
Got that.
Good job. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here.
That wasn't the
Let's
joke.
turn to the person above you, below you, to the sides, wave. And Alex, I think I'm going to be in the Rabbi Brian breakout group for a moment. Thank you guys. I'll see you in a few weeks because I'm going on a trip.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Can you
Have a
put
good
me
trip,
into
Rabbi.
deep dive as usual, please?
Are you deep diving or are you chit chatting? Because the other thing that I was asked to mention is that if you're planning on going to deep dive for socialization and not actually the discussion, we're going to put you in